Hello and welcome all to this wonderful lunch organized by the Dish Cluster. Today we'll have a couple of hours where we'll try to take you through a wonderful menu of good items for the future of food safety in Europe. With me today are a number of great project coordinators, some great speakers, and we'll be diving into a number of different topics related to food safety, to the future of good food, and obviously food resilience, food quality, and other good issues related to food safety. My name is Lars Munter. I will be your host today, but I will try to keep in the background as much as possible to allow other good people to, of course, present their good wisdom. And right now, it's my pleasure to give the floor to Marcello Bardolini of the Horizon Resource Booster program, which is actually one of the really great initiatives of the EU to allow good knowledge and good research to come to the fore. And Marcello, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lars, for introducing me. Again, Marcello Bardolini from Icons. I'm actually a member of the organization who is delivering the dissemination services by the Horizon Results Booster. And today it's actually a pleasure to be here because in the Horizon Results Booster, we started the path together with just SafeConsume, but then around SafeConsume, a group of sister project was built. And today is really the opportunity for all of them to mark their collaboration and possibly being just the first one of a really long path of a successful collaboration. Again, I'm not gonna take more time from the discussion today. It's a pleasure again to be here and to have worked with all these key and insightful experts and people and topics. So back to you, Lars. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcello. All of you out there will know that as part of a great lunch, of course, you start off with appetizers. That would be normal. So while you have to think about the taste, I suppose, of the appetizers, you'll get to at least to see and to listen to some great project coordinators now. With me is Alejandro Arias Vazquez from the Eat to Be Nice project, a consortium that studies the connection between gut microbiota and exercise to optimize nutrition. But Alejandro, a brief introduction to your project and consortium.
Good morning, Lars. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to be here to share with you the progress of our work. Our main driver, our main idea, I Need to Be Nice, is to discover nutritional drivers for behavior. We're interested in identifying which type of nutritional interventions, nutritional exposures modify behavior in humans. In order to do this, we study different things. We investigate the effect of multiple things that affect our life every day. We look at diet, of course, eating behavior, dietary behavior. We also investigate exercise, physical activity. We also look at our biology. We look at genetics. We look at the brain structure, brain function. And we also look at these nice bugs that live inside us, specifically those that live in our gastrointestinal system, also known as the gut microbiota. Our idea is to find these links, these associations, and try to translate those into formula based on nutrition that can affect positively disorders of the neurodevelopment, like attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, autism, but also behaviors associated with increased impulsivity or increased addiction, increased aggression, etc., etc. We're interested in studying how these dietary components and lifestyle influences people's overall health, but focused, of course, in brain function and particularly on behavior. One of our umbrella aims, our overall purposes for it to be nice, is to promote societal changes, that counteract this maladaptive behavior, maladaptive impulsivity, maladaptive aggression, using the power that nutrition has for this, but more importantly, by bringing evidence-based information about health-related behaviors to our families, to clinicians, policymakers, and of course, the general public. It's a very big project, 18 partners, and we're very happy to be able to share this with all of you here. Lars, back to you. Thank you.
Obviously, talking about gut microbiota, there's a lot to learn because, well, we've all got one, not most of us anyway, and it's different from each individual to the next one, which brings me very much to our next project coordinator, Jose Rufián Henares of the Stands for Health project, looking at personalized nutrition. And introducing some tech elements into how to actually make a tailored food production that would optimize that element for each and every one of us. Jose, are you with us today too? Another
Yes.
appetizer.
Hi, Lars. Thank you so much for your kind introduction. Good morning, everyone from the Stands for Health project. As Lars said, we are looking at the gut microbiota functionality from a different point of view, more technological. In this case, the Stands for Health project, what it wants to do is to develop a complete, smart, personalized nutrition system based in a mobile application that takes into account not only the nutritional needs of the human being, but also of his or her gut microbiota. And to do this, it takes into account, for example, not only the kind of foods that are eaten by consumers, but also how these foods are culinary processed, for example, using instead changing frying versus boiling or roasting, and how this has an impact on the composition and the functionality of the gut microbiota. In order to help the consumer to assume a long-lasting modification on their eating behaviors, we use also some feedback from the humanities, looking also at the modification of the brain functionality, and also we are developing many different kind of food supplements and different foods specifically developed for different kind of consumers. For example, for children with celiac disease, or for children with allergy, which are allergic to cow's milk proteins that allow to remove the dysbiosis they have on the gut microbiota and move into a healthier state. In addition, we perform different analyses for children and to adults, also taking into account the physical activity with a bracelet connected with a mobile app that develop that give to them a weekly healthy menu. And we also use a new metabolomics analysis that not only is able to detect more than 150 different metabolic diseases, congenital diseases, but also it is able to unravel how the gut microbiota functionality is being modified by this healthy diet. And this is what we are testing right now in different nutritional interventions across Europe. And so, Lars, if you want, the floor is yours. You can continue with the next dishes.
Well, we're still with the appetizers, of course, and another great piece on that plate would now be the project coordinator from the SafeConsume project, Solveig Langsrud. The SafeConsume project has some more components that dives closer into the 5 big challenges of foodborne diseases across Europe, but also looks how to educate the consumers, understand their behavior and understand how we might, as a system, allow them or help them, nudge them into healthy behaviors. Solveig, here to present this next appetizer. Your microphone, Solveig.
Hi,
Much
thank
better.
you, and good morning to everyone. I'm coordinating SafeConsume, and as Lars told you, it's about helping consumers to mitigate risk when they make food at home. So that's about helping me and you and all citizens in Europe. We have already been running for almost 5 years in a large project, and we have a lot of results ready. For example, we have educational programs, e-learning programs for teenagers ready in 6 languages under the eBug platform. We have some tools that will come to the market later, I guess next year. For example, temperature indicators that consumers can use, for example, for leftovers. And we have also looked at policy models, the issue, for example, how we can balance between food waste and food safety. And the project started by actually visiting people at their kitchen and to map both what people do and what they think, and also map the microbes. And one case study that is relevant today, I think, is chicken salad for lunch. And believe me, it's not an easy task to make a chicken salad. Thinking of safety, you have to think about choosing the safe versions of food. You have to think about safe storage, cool storage. You have to think about cleaning hands, knives, cutting boards all the time, and also the cooking part of making a chicken salad may be a challenge. And what is important to know is that it's a lot of myths and disbeliefs around food safety, and not only among lay people, but also among scientists. So we have a lot of myths to break. And what we're working with right now is to choose which food safety messages that we should tell consumers across Europe to mitigate risk. And here all our 32 partners will work together to give an expert opinion on that. So I think that's all about SafeConsume for now, Lars.
Well, quite a bit too, Solveig. And one of the elements in the SafeConsume project that they've looked at would, of course, be the issue of foodborne diseases. One of them would be one that you may have heard of, may not, toxoplasmosis. And for our next project and next appetizer, and allow me to use toxoplasmosis and appetizer in the same sentence, but bear with me, this is about food safety today. Pika Jokelainen, the leader of the TOXOSOURCES project, that dives into how we might actually use research and good data to mitigate the risk of this particular parasite.
Thank you, Lars. Indeed, great to be here and bring some One Health and food safety to the table, and no parasites. TOXOSOURCES is a joint research project under One Health European Joint Program. And in TOXOSOURCES, we focus on the parasite Toxoplasma gondii. This parasite can be transmitted by eating undercooked meat of infected animals, or also by eating vegetables, or by drinking water that has been contaminated with this parasite, as this parasite can also be present in a feces of infected cats. So we investigate these different sources, and we aim to know how to best prevent the infections. I would emphasize that this parasite, Toxoplasma gondii, is a One Health issue because it can cause disease in both humans and in animals, and it has this environmental form. And it has many ways to infect us, but we also have many ways to stop it. And it's important to think about from the farm to the lunch table. So if we would better prevent the infections in animals, then the risk to humans would be lower. And now that we are preparing to go to our lunch table, so we have, of course, washed our hands and washed all the vegetables and salads. And if there will be meat served, so that has been cooked to at least 67 degrees Celsius to kill any possible parasites in it. So it would be healthy and safe and tasty and no infection risks from parasites. Back to you.
Thank you indeed, Pika. Yes, preferably without parasites as much as possible. And finally, for our last appetizer in this part of the program, Veronica Latanazio of the Food Safety for EU project, which is a project that tries to provide a multi-stakeholder platform forum for all of us. But indeed, a lot of good initiatives and a lot of good institutions are out there providing food safety for Europeans, Veronica. So why platform?
Why a platform? Good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to this interesting lunch. Why a platform for food safety in Europe? Because we are in a period characterized by big and interconnected challenges, such as natural resource scarcity, climate change, population growth. All those challenges are affecting the food system globally. And to address them, it's clear now that it is required a transformation towards more sustainable food system to ensure healthy diet and nutrition security for all. And as you know, the European Commission is already strongly committed to accelerate and drive this transformation, either through the Farm to Fork strategy and the broader European Green Deal policy. Now, food safety is an integral part of food nutrition and security, and therefore it is crucial for sustainable development. However, due to the complexity of the science behind, to undertake the above challenges, it's clear that intensifying the cooperation between the actor in the food safety ecosystem has become an important prerequisite to deliver future-proof solutions. So within this framework, and as specifically foreseen in the Food 2030 Pathway for Action Food Safety System for the Future, a multi-stakeholder collaborative platform is expected to support this safe transition towards a more sustainable food system. And this is Food Safety for You. Food Safety for You is a platform committed to enhance common effort and to better structure the European food safety system of the future. It will enable the network of food safety system actors at national, European, and international level to access resources and data efficiently, to synchronize food safety research strategies, to share and exchange scientific knowledge. So let me say that within this view, clustering with other projects is extremely important for us. So the experience of the dish is an important step of this journey, together with the workshop today. So this workshop today is for us a key moment, so I'm very glad to be here, and I really hope that you all will enjoy the workshop. Thank you, Lars.
The point is, of course, to leave you wanting more. And therefore, it's my great pleasure to allow us to move a little bit forward. On screen, you'll soon also see a Mentimeter that you can go into and try to answer some questions related to the topic of today. But for our next session quite soon, we'll be having a virtual lunch together with the project coordinators you've just seen and a number of great speakers with us today. We'll be moving into that session very soon. First off, we have some great speakers from the European Food Safety Authority, from the ADHD Europe, sorry. Even with great appetizers, you lose sight sometimes of where your tongue might want to be. And then from the Agri-food Innovation Cluster, from EuroCoop, and from the Health National Insitute in Romania too. So moving into that next session, Stef Bronzwaer and also Alejandro with us to talk about the European food safety efforts. For those of you that do not know EFSA already, it's of course a joint European initiative that Pika and Stef, yes, Pika, sorry, but nonetheless, Stef Bronzwaer and Pika will be joining me. Sorry, thank you, Pika. Nice to be nudged even with a kick over the shin sometimes. But Stef and Pika, if you'll join me on stage, let's talk about the European food safety system. Let's talk about the European food safety initiatives and how we might, across borders, try to do that even better. And thank you, Pika, for the nudge.
Thank you, Lars. Indeed, I was like, oh no, I have prepared a question to Stef. I want to ask it, so I'm very happy that you gave me the floor. And Stef, so great to see you. How are you doing? And would you very briefly introduce yourself, please, to others on this lunch?
Yes, no, great to be here. Thanks for the invitation. Already very good appetizers. Stef Bronzwaer is my name. I work in the European Food Safety Authority, EFSA, research coordinator. And good to, after the appetizers come the starters, which is good for me because typically I'm more a finisher. I typically finish the plates of my daughters, also to avoid food waste. So good to eat together.
That's excellent. So you will be staying until the end of the lunch for sure. But now we are kind of having the starter salad. And I'm thinking here that when we mix things to maybe green salad, tomatoes, a little bit olive oil. So what makes a good salad? And my question to you is that food safety, it's very, very closely linked to One Health thinking and working together across sectors. So basically adding all the right things to that salad. So what is your advice in this regard? I'm also thinking about our experiences working together you are a member of the stakeholder committee of One Health EJP, where TOXOSOURCES project is part of. So you've been following this field also in that sense. What is the recipe for a balanced One Health food safety salad? So who should we talk with? Who should be involved? How do we do it?
Yeah, you, I think, already mentioned it. It's intersectoral cooperation, isn't it? It's about different sectors coming together. And therefore, I think One Health really is very timely now. It's really the time that we go from preaching to practicing One Health, which is not easy. It's not easy. It's not clear who shall be doing exactly what. And it's also not easy to work together without stepping on others' toes and without also involving the others, without paralyzing yourself, waiting for others. So indeed, it needs a good mixture of the different ingredients. For EFSA, we're very close to One Health because actually it's in our mission. EFSA started, as you know, I guess, after the mad cow's disease, which is actually a One Health problem as well, with food byproducts going back into the feed and transposing to risks in humans, leading to deaths and economic disaster actually at the time. So basically EFSA was born, and in the mission statement, in fact, you find that EFSA is asked to guarantee public health, animal health, plant health, and also consider environmental issues. So it's really in our DNA. As said, not so easy, more easily said than done, probably. And I'm very happy that actually tomorrow, the One Health EGP will be meeting with our EFSA advisory forum, where we convene with all the national food agencies on a regular basis, where the One Health EGP will present their main deliverables, the plethora, the richness of the many very practical outcomes that you already have delivered and continue to deliver for another year. And this will, I think, really be a very good occasion to meet with the national member states responsible for food safety, to see how we can move to One Health surveillance in practice. Because in fact, to do this, obviously you need to change practices. You need to have the resources in place to follow up on surveillance. You need to understand each other. So for example, one of the many examples, the deliverables of the One Health EGP has been the One Health glossary, where you allow each other to understand, to not necessarily speak the same language, because the terminology sometimes is also laid down in legislation, so not easy to change, but at least you're clear to each other on what you're speaking about.
Exactly.
Food safety is the other side of the medal in a way, which goes together intrinsically. In fact, not by chance, EFSA is also very closely not only following on the health EGP, but also on the food safety for EU, with Veronica present today. Because obviously when you make changes, and you mentioned it, we need a transition of food systems to come also to sustainable food production. There you need to know what you're doing, like the earlier example of the mad cow's disease. But also if you think an example could be urban farming, a very important, promising initiative. But if you think that, for example, in urban areas, city areas, the contamination with heavy metals is much higher. You need to understand what you're doing if you're growing your crops in the city area. So it's not so straightforward. And therefore, I think this intersectoral, this cross-disciplinary cooperation is really crucial, because where one sector may not think of the implications on what we're doing, possibly other sectors are better equipped to look ahead and understand what we're doing. So that, I think, would be crucial elements to it.
Sounds very good. I think indeed this kind of works with the salad, that there is cross-sectoral and there's many elements mixed together, and that is needed. So I think with this nice opening for our lunch, we have been bringing some One Health, food safety, and cross-sectoral collaboration and future ideas to the table. And we can go back to Lars, please.
Thank you. Indeed, with appetizers and now a great salad in addition, it's really nice, and it's worth maybe now to think about why. Or of course, the purpose of eating is of course to get food, to get energy, but also the purpose of why. In that sense, we move to our next pairs, I suppose. We are able at least to give the floor to Giulia and to Veronica instead, which means, of course, that we'll be looking a little bit more into the consumer side of things, and of course also the retailer element, if you will. Giulia Tarsitano of the EuroCoop and Veronica, please, it's nice of you to join our lunch, and I hope that you can now serve one of the dishes that we were going to see anyway, but just a little bit sooner than expected, I suppose. But thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Lars. Let me first of all thank Giulia also from my personal side. I'm very happy to have you here, and thank you for joining the lunch. Maybe you want to introduce yourself briefly before I ask you a question?
Yes, of course. So my name is Giulia Tarsitano, and I work as a food policy manager at EuroCoop, which is the European Association of Consumer Cooperatives active in the food retailing, as it was mentioned. So I hope you can also hear me well.
Yeah, perfectly. Okay, so Giulia, as Lars said, let's try to reflect a little bit from the consumer point of view, because now you know the consumers in the last year seems to become very active in the food context, in the food system anyway. And this is mirrored by the request that we received by the European Commission within the recent Research and Innovation Framework, and also by the updated regulation on transparency of the new transparency regulation. We are asked to meet with societal expectation when we deliver and we communicate our research. So the question is, how we can ensure that consumers are properly educated and fully understand the context to enable them to cooperate and to work with us together towards common goal. In other words, you know that we are anyway in a period in which misinformation can be high, in which trust in the food somehow is low. But on the other hand, there are some aspects like nutritional properties or sustainability aspects, which are quite attractive for consumers. So they are ready to be engaged, I would say. So how would you propose to really guide them and make them aware to contribute towards common goal. Thank you, Giulia.
Thanks for the question and for having me here today. So yes, as you said, consumers are more and more eager to really understand policy decisions about food, but also to take part in them. But it's true that if we look at political process in this sector, from a consumer's perspective, they're still a bit distant and a bit opaque. And we should also consider that consumers are not all the same. They have different capabilities and different resources, which means that sometimes certain debate on the policy-making process is really inaccessible to some of them. And also this depends a little bit on the member states' approach, which is very uneven across the EU, with some having policies that are very inclusive and very transparent and other less or not at all. So to get back to your question, I think, of course, understanding and education of consumers of the food system is very important, and we can give a couple of examples later on. But I think also we should kind of ensure that consumers have sufficient and adequate ways to interact with the process. So institutional, but also non-institutional paths that allow them to contribute. So I think the two things need to go hand in hand. And we should therefore also try to have a more coordinated initiatives that act not just on education, but also kind of relocate and transform a little bit the governance of the food system to make it more accessible for consumer. And when we discuss food safety issue, we know they're very complex. I think we should also look into having appropriate spaces for EU policy makers, but risk assessors and managers in particular, I'm saying, to kind of explain the trade-off that are necessary when taking a decision about food safety, the kind of conflicting considerations, so for the general public to have a better understanding. And in this sense, if we, as we said, look for solutions, I think the most effective from a consumer perspective, again, are those that are closer to them. So I look mostly to the to the local or community levels, where there are actions that I think can offer a win-win solution. So in particular, if I think about increasing education and understanding, I think I always like to remember that I think it's very important to act on young generation as a way also to target the family as a whole, so the adults in the family as well. And in that sense, I think we have very good examples in some countries where there is not just a food education at school, but kind of taste education, really to teach future consumers what healthy and sustainable and safe food tastes like, but also kind of to nurture that kind of food culture that I think it's very important to achieve the objectives that we have for a more sustainable food system. And in that sense, obviously, public procurement has a great role to play through the school canteens. Then I think also we mentioned this, the community garden. So I mean, the access to land, it poses some risk, of course, but it's again a way to kind of get consumers and families and young people closer to understand how food is produced and where it comes from. And obviously even there we need support from governments, local governments, or national governments. Then of course coming from the cooperatives, consumer cooperatives world, I cannot not mention the fact that consumer co-ops and cooperative supermarkets at the retailing level are excellent, I think, means to reduce that distance there is between consumers and the food system, because it's a business model that really kind of focuses on including the direct engagement of consumers, not just in the management, but in some situation also as a labor force. Again, these are all things that are not, that can pose also some challenges, but I think have some elements that really help consumer better understand and gain an education. But then if we really look at how to get them work together with other actors, I think the most interesting examples are the food policy councils. We have this idea has been implemented in several countries and can be at the urban level, as we have it in Belgium, but they can also be national. And the idea is really to kind of have a holistic and interdisciplinary approach to food system, to all the issues that concerns food, by bringing different but also complementary expertise to the table. So I think what is in that sense is really important, is to make sure that if we implement a food policy council, we grant a degree of independence, because we know that if we allow for some debate, then that debate needs to also be implemented in actual practical solutions. And when it comes to food, we really need long-lasting strategies, so something that lasts longer than political terms. So I think these are more or less the elements that I think can be put in this salad to have consumer being more active and more educated.
Okay, so Giulia, thank you very much.
Thank you, Veronica.
I just to compliment your reply, I must say that in food safety for you, and because you are part of this action, we are experiencing really in the field how complex is engaging with consumers, because different to undertake action really at European level, but we need to tailor country per country the action to build this awareness. There are different, really the awareness is uneven, as you mentioned before, and since you mentioned the education, which is probably the most effective approach with long-term perspectives, indeed, what we also realize is that a dialogue with government is extremely important, because changing the education programs needs to have an interaction with governments. So I really thank you for putting the focus on how complex is consumer engagement. That I'm sure that the other panelists will share this. So I would hand over to Lars now to go on with the next panelist. Thank you again, Giulia. Very nice to have you here.
Thank you.
And thank you indeed. As you just sort of witnessed from our side, technology can sometimes play tricks. It can also be very, very helpful. In this particular case, of course, we have quickly been managed to establish our new platform. So it's also a very good and helping hand at various stages, and can be also within food safety and with nutrition. And therefore, it's a great pleasure to introduce our next speakers at this stage, Hans van der Velde and Alejandro. In this particular case, we should maybe our great audience that you saw a little bit of Hans and Alejandro, but once again, we're talking about the importance of a good nutrition for the way your brain works. Not how technology works. I'm not sure you can eat your way to better technology, but at least we can eat our way to a better functioning brain. So Hans and Alejandro, let's try to dive into that issue again.
Thank you, Lars, and thank you to the audience for the technical glitch. This happens, and thanks to Hans for being patient and staying with us. I cannot be sure where did the feed stop, so I guess we should try to go back again for the for your introduction to the audience. And then we can perhaps talk about a few questions I have very briefly about how can this work help people with ADHD. So Hans, let's briefly introduce yourselves, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Hans van der Velde. In daily life, I work as a coach. I coach employee for employers. As you can guess, a lot of people with a special brain, like ADHD and autism amongst them. Next to that, I am chair of the science committee of the Dutch Association for People with ADHD, Dyslexia, Dyscalculia. And I'm vice president of ADHD Europe, the umbrella organization. And I myself have dyslexia and ADHD. So that's for my introduction.
Well, this is pretty impressive. We have been working together for many years now, Hans, sitting together at that big table in your office, discussing about how can we find answers to key questions that help people with special brains. And one of these questions is related to nutrition, how people eat, and what are the characteristics of the behavior that leads people to eat in certain way. And since we're talking about people with special brains, like those with ADHD or autism, why don't you perhaps tell us and share with us what are these main challenges that people with ADHD suffer or have to deal with in order to eat healthy, and perhaps some solutions. What could we do about that? And
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Much appreciated. Indeed, our years-long cooperation. Indeed, for people with ADHD, for everybody, healthy food, healthy eating is a challenge, of course. But for people with ADHD, it's an extra challenge, and I try to explain this. I have to start with sharing, for this context, the essence of ADHD. ADHD is due to a genetic default lower level of neurotransmitters. They have problems, I can say we have problems with alertness or so-called vigilance. You can also say attention or focus, and with self-control. Self-control is the brain being automatically aware what the body and the mind is doing. So you can, in lay language, you can say the brain is a bit sleepy. So what does this affect healthy eating? Well, with respect to healthy eating, there are quite a few challenges. This lower self-control in daily eating behavior makes it difficult to make conscious and healthy decisions. For example, they may not notice physical signals from the stomach, such as being full, or may not be able to wait for healthy food when unhealthy food is available in the here and now. So this is already quite a challenge to live healthy. The lower alertness, as well as memory problems, which are very well known within ADHD, frustrates also building up new habits. And again, that's a challenge for everybody, but for ADHD, it's even more so. Using information about healthy food doesn't pop up at the right moment in the brain of a person with ADHD. And individuals with ADHD, of course, they know that healthy eating is important, and they have knowledge about it like everybody. But however, they don't recall the advice at the moment of shopping or cooking or eating. To give you a simple example, they forget to drink a glass of water before dinner, although they have heard and they know that drinking a full glass of water before you go to dinner makes you eat less. It's a kind of standard advice. So building up these new habits is extra difficult because of this lower awareness of the brain. For healthy eating, one needs a so-called executive functions. Someone on Twitter just said, and I will quote, ADHD is annoying because being sufficiently nourished has a huge impact on my executive functioning. But I have to have some level of executive functioning in order to nourish myself sufficiently, which means I have to be sufficiently nourished prior to my nourishment. Do you get the idea? Here is where they get stuck. So
yes.
That's an example of a person sharing it from within, from experience. And another thing is following instructions like a recipe. In healthy food, you think about recipes, of course, that's normal. But following a recipe is almost impossible for ADHD. Forget it. I know many people with ADHD, when they talk about recipes, they say, well, I read the recipe and then I do my own thing. That's a thing about memory. The same counts for keeping up your attention at your grocery list. When you walk in the supermarket, they will get distracted. But here, medication can help, because medication helps to focus and concentrate better. So we can conclude in a general way that medication for ADHD will or can lead to a healthier life for people with ADHD. So that's important to realize. Then people with ADHD have a challenge in emotional eating. I think who's listening here will know about emotional eating. In ADHD, boredom or emotional problems, such as rewarding yourself with unhealthy food, sugar and sweets as known, that will make you feel better. And here, people with ADHD have an extra challenge, an extra problem. So
yeah, also because these kind of foods, for example, sweets, they can become, you can have cravings for it. So
craving, yeah, sure.
They are basically designed, some of them, for this. What could we do about this? Perhaps you could tell us a couple of things briefly about what could we do about these challenges.
Yes, indeed. Instead of only talking about problems, let's talk about directions for solutions. Indeed.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, one is make people with ADHD aware that if they notice their lack of inhibition, most of the time they won't notice, but if someone tells them or they notice themselves, they can, instead of feeling ashamed about doing it wrong again, they can talk to their doctor about enhancing the doses of their medication a little bit. So that's a simple advice you can give them. Another one is more for those who disseminate advices. Don't use complex instructions, such as long recipes. For me, no recipes at all. Better make short and easy cooking videos, because we know that's known in science also, that people with ADHD are picture thinkers. They see videos and pictures in their mind. So this is what we're doing in E2B Nice, aren't we, Alejandro? We try to make videos to translate our knowledge.
Yeah, indeed. We try to bring complicated scientific findings and other results into something that people can use in their daily life. And these visual cues are quite useful.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
And as being a picture thinker myself, I was fantasizing about, okay, what would we do in such a video? Well, a healthy food advice has to pop up at the right moment and the right place. So in the kitchen where you're cooking, or in the supermarket when you're buying stuff. For instance, an advice may be, eat only whole grain and no fast sugars. So a person has to connect his shopping list to this advice. The brain has to connect them. I would imagine a video showing a person in the kitchen with the grocery list and a super simple standard grocery list that mentions whole grain pre-printed on the top. So then the habit can be built. And after a year or so, you can let it go, and then the brain will know. Because people with ADHD are not unable to build habits. They depend on it, but they have a challenge there. It takes more time to build a habit than neurotypicals. So another one, emotional triggers are used in advertising. So as soon as we disseminate our scientific findings, we have to realize that these emotional triggers in advertising don't work as well for people with ADHD. For example, fear, something like, if I don't make the decision now, I'll regret. That's what advertising focuses on. This may work, but it may also lead to obsessive overcompensation, and then you get over the top and use the adverse effects. So also emotions like envy or competition or pride may not work in the combination with the well-known within ADHD negative self-image. The negative self-esteem, self-belief system may turn it around. Your well-intended advice will be turned around in, okay, that's nothing for me. I'm a loser. I'm stupid. I can't do this. So the same for shame. If you address the shame emotion in your advertising, your dissemination, it may only strengthen the negative self-image. So this is a mission for all of us here, especially for scientists. Find out which emotional or other trigger works for people with ADHD and use sciences like neuroeconomics or other to really address them in the right way. Well, then I have 3 more things coming up.
I think that we have to let's say think about closing. We have a lot of other speakers waiting for us. But if we could in one sentence give us one final message to our audience, Hans, in your own words, what would that be?
Well,
very short.
My top final advice would be use ADHD food ambassadors, people who have ADHD and, for instance, work as an ADHD coach, to bring food advice to the people in practical ways that will work for them, because they know how the brain of people with ADHD work. So that's my final advice.
Hans, I'm so grateful for your time, for your patience with this, also for your words. This has been very educational. Thank you again. Lars, the floor is yours. Thank you again for your help solving all these technical issues. Thank you.
Well,
Bye-bye.
I am only the host, so I'm glad to say that I'm not actually in the kitchen per se. I'm just standing in the front of the restaurant and guiding people maybe to the right table.
Well, the magic hands of the people behind the curtain, they work their magic, and we're back on the air. So thank you.
I'm hoping that people will still enjoy the wonderful lunch at our restaurant, Danish Cluster, which is a horrible way of pronouncing something in French. But next up, our 2 next coordinator and speaker, Corina Zugravu of the National Institute in Romania, and Solvay of SafeConsume, to talk about actually one of the issues that our previous team were talking about, how to provide good information to the citizens that need them. Whether they have ADHD or not, they definitely need some good information on how to eat. Yeah. So, please.
Thank you, Lars. It's very interesting to see how parallel we work with food safety and nutrition and everything to try to translate all this information into something simple for people to understand. And welcome to the table, Corina. Could you say some few words about yourself?
Yes, at this very moment, I'm not very happy because I just discovered that I have ADHD. Since I frequently eat sweets and also cannot stick to a recipe in the kitchen. So I'm just digesting the information I just got. My name is Corina Zugravu. I'm a professor at our University of Medicine and Pharmacy in Bucharest, and I also collaborate for a very long time with our National Institute of Public Health. I also collaborated during different periods of time with EFSA. I'm still collaborating in work groups at the European Commission. And I like very much to translate scientific information for the average consumer, let's say consumer. And wherever the press here in my country or elsewhere asks me something, I usually answer, not because I want some kind of advertising, I don't need it since I'm a scientist, but because I see so much disinformation in the nutrition and food safety area, so I have the tendency to want to correct it.
Exactly. So that's what I wanted to discuss with you today, because you see from all these projects, it's a really huge amount of data within a lot of different aspects of food, safety, nutrition, and you also have climate and everything, and you have these huge differences between countries. So you also have to translate all of this into your food culture. So in a huge Horizon 2020 project, we always wonder how can we be sure that our results are really used by food policy makers or policy makers in Europe and also nationally. Do you have some tips?
I don't have a clear answer, that's for sure. I would be happy to have it. I just remember during while waiting in the waiting room of a very, very interesting research regarding nutrigenomics here in Europe. I think it was a Finnish one, and how it has been translated in the lay press. It was the result in press was exactly the opposite as the result in the research. So the article per se was very complicated, let's be clear. It was incomprehensible even for me, but I could manage a little bit. But what they translated, and I think it was a widely read journal, was exactly the opposite. And the scientists had to come back and say, no, it's not like that. It's just the opposite. So it's very complicated. I think in the dissemination area of these projects, you have to have a member in your team, or maybe just hire for the period of the dissemination, a member of your team that is in charge to communicate, I don't know, to authorities, to NGOs, even to the final consumer, the results in a more clear and easier way than it resulted from the research. This is something very important, because we are trying to publish, we are trying to write for scientific papers, because this is our activity. But unfortunately, apart from our peers, which generally read those type of articles, no one reads them, or even if they read, they don't understand the thing. I tried to translate, when I write something like that, I try to translate in some short phrases and then put a post on LinkedIn or on my Facebook or on Twitter. I don't know who's interested or not, but at least if they are interested, I reach them and they understand what I'm writing there. On the other hand, when you organize conferences, I think maybe an idea would be to have a certain panel, a certain section where you invite authorities. Authorities are not frequently well qualified to understand very complicated scientific research. So you invite authorities, you invite NGOs, organizations, different organizations, even stakeholders, producers, food producers. They are a very important pawn here in this game of chess, and maybe communicate in an easier way your results. I think the results will be better comprehended and maybe applied, or maybe organize a separate conference, a separate symposium dedicated especially for people that are not very well trained in the area. I know you are doing food safety in the area of food safety. You also have to have something visible on the internet. This is a very important thing. I know there is something named SEO. So when you are searching a keyword on the internet, let your research or that database, that articles that are understandable for everyone appear on the first page on Google, because if it's something buried at the 10th page of Google, no one will look there. I think this is something that's very important, because it can be present there for years after years. Even after 5-6 years, your results could be consulted and maybe applied, fortunately applied by everyone else. I remember maybe the member of your team responsible for communication would be suitable to be someone that originates in academia, because when you are teaching students, you generally have these communication skills developed through years, and you also know how to simplify the information so that to reach to everyone's mind. And I think that can be exploited in complex and big research results as you have. Ultimately, I don't know. I also thought that the link with industry is very important, with the stakeholders from industry. Informing them, maybe they will do something with those results, like, I don't know, if you are selling meat, you can add something like an information leaflet, cook it like that, don't mix raw meat with bread, and basic hygienic advice, which, I don't know, I hope everyone knows this, but practice shows, and I know your results, unfortunately, maybe everyone knows, but a few apply. So I don't know if my advice is usable or not, but I even thought that in shops, when you are selling fridges, freezers, you can put something like a leaflet, and right there, or on when you are selling, I don't know, a blender or something, don't blend the crude products with boiled products. Yeah. This kind of stuff can be useful, and I think NGOs are very important in this area. I'm sorry, I talk too much.
No, but maybe we have to stop there, but it was very, very interesting. very many good points here that we will use. Thank you very much.
Well, it's nice, Corina, I suppose, to discover something new about yourself, and indeed be able to maybe figure out how to find a good diet that would suit you, whether you actually have ADHD or not. But still,
hopefully not.
Hopefully.
Thank you.
Well, it is something to be managed as well. But as I as when you've looked at the menu for today, we'll now talk about technical stuff, and also the element of how to use technology and innovation to also improve the ability to have personalized nutrition. So Jose and Eugénie, if you're with us, we'll dying to know more about how to use those two elements for, well, something very personal, how and what to eat.
Thank you, Lars, again for your kind introduction. I think it's the main course is getting healthier little by little, and now I think that we can discuss more about the innovation, about the role of the agri-food sector. As the previous speaker said, for me, it's my real pleasure to introduce here to Eugénie Cornu, that she's not also a very big expert in the agri-food sector, but she's also part of our external advisory board of the Stef for Health project. And for me, I have no words to acknowledge the opportunity to discuss with her here. Eugénie, welcome. If you want to say something about yourself.
Thank you so much, Jose. It's so nice to see you, and I'm honored as well to be invited today on stage. Yes, so my name is Eugénie Cornu. I work at Vitagora. We are an international agri-food innovation cluster, and we work towards helping our members producing more healthy, tasty, and sustainable food products.
Yeah, I think it's a very big issue, but because as the other speakers have been talking about, we are researching on that. All of us are worried about to follow a healthy diet, and little by little, the consumers are thinking about, okay, healthier, but also sustainable. But this is very difficult, how to manage to have a healthier and at the same time a sustainable diet. And what do you think on this? How can we manage this, both sides of the same coin?
That's an excellent question. Today, a lot of research projects are focusing on developing new ingredients and new food products that are healthy and sustainable, like alternative proteins to reduce carbon footprint, for example, while ensuring a healthy diet, etc. But this is all on the research side still, and consumers are still struggling today to find alternatives to eat healthy and sustainable. So I guess the most innovations today are focusing on the labeling and on food packaging, for example, adding labels on the food packaging to help the consumers choose products that are healthy and sustainable. We all know the Nutri-Score today, that is an index helping the consumers to choose healthier food products with a better nutritional quality, but the Nutri-Score doesn't involve the environmental impact. So there has been an eco score that has been developed to inform on the carbon footprint, on the environmental impact of the food product. But again, it's not helping on the nutritional quality. Then there's also other labels, for example, working on developing an index to determine the level of transformation of the food product that you buy. So to know whether it has been ultra transformed, if it's a raw product, if the level of transformation of the food product. So there are a lot of initiatives, I guess, to help the consumers choose the right product to eat healthy and sustainable. We see also a boom in the development of apps to help the consumers like scan their product in the supermarket, telling you, okay, here I have a combination of the Nutri-Score and the Eco-Score, for example, telling you if this product has a great nutritional values, but a bad environmental impact, for example. This could help the consumer choose the right product. But it's currently, I guess, still a struggle for the consumers, even though the European research and innovation community is working a lot on developing new products that are healthy and sustainable.
Yeah. So at the end, we need to train the consumers to understand these messages, because if not, we have no sense to develop these kind of scores to follow and to unravel if a product is healthier than other and is more sustainable than the others. And in this case, I have another question for you, because of some people think, okay, this product is healthier. Imagine plenty of dietary fiber, but plenty of dietary fiber, maybe the taste is not so good. So how can the food industry develop healthy products, but also attractive to the consumers to allow them to improve the consumption of these kind of products?
Absolutely. The trilogy, healthy, sustainable, and tasty, is really something hard to achieve nowadays with all the requirements from the industry and from the consumers and also from the policymakers. So how to keep a product tasty? That's an excellent question. So I guess, again, we are working a lot on developing new healthy products with alternative proteins, with alternative ingredients and products. Flavors, for example, are a great tool to help the product become more flavorous, more tasty. It also helps, flavors also help in the reduction of sugar and fats, for example, also in the reduction of salt. For example, in Japan, in Asia, they developed amazake. They not developed it. It's an ancient product, but it's a fermented sweetener that helps reduce sugar while adding taste in the food products, for example. So that's an excellent alternative. Then again, there are a lot of innovations in the fermentation sector. Fermentation is a great tool to help develop healthy foods while preserving their taste. Sorry. So yeah, I guess the innovations are to help the food products to become more tasty are based on the flavors and on fermentation today. Even though flavors can be sometimes critical because of the claims of the flavors. For example, with sweeteners, there were a lot of polemics on the sweeteners and the aim of replacing sugar by sweeteners. Is it good for the health? Is it good for the environment? There are a lot of EU projects also working on this, analyzing the impact of replacing sugar by sweeteners. But I think we are moving towards great innovations to having healthier products by, for example, reducing sugar and fats while still having tasty products.
Yeah, So it's nice. It's a good approach. And just let me talk about something especially important for me about personalized nutrition, because of our project is about personalized nutrition. And although we are working in our project with the future children, okay, but we need to think also on the current population, mainly the elderly, because of the elderly people is still expanding year by year, and we need to develop new products for them, new ways, new kind of foods, specifically designed for them, because of they have specific nutritional requirements. And so, what do you know about the innovations in this sector, which is so important and has a very big economic impact in Europe?
Absolutely. It's really important to focus also personalized nutrition for elderly people. Today, elderly people that are in hospitals or in medical houses, almost 70% of them suffer from malnutrition because of three main causes. They have a loss of aromatic sensations, so they don't feel the taste that much anymore. They have a loss of swallowing and chewing capacities, and they also have a loss of appetite. And all this together leads to a lot of malnutrition in elderly. So it's very important to focus also personalized nutrition for the silver economy, silver food, like we call it. So it's important to develop products that fit both their physical state, being able to chew and to swallow, but also that are tasty and that gives them all the nutrients that they need to stay fit. So new products are indeed being developed with for example, enriched in proteins, a lot of protein content, yet not too concentrated to fit their taste, because of course, food that is very concentrated in proteins may not be that tasty. I know also that innovative projects are working on adding, for example, taste thanks to molecular gastronomy. So that's also something being developed currently, and also adding texture so that elderly people not only drink soup, which can be very boring and also leading to malnutrition, but adding texture while still enabling easy chewing and swallowing. So all this together helps producing new foods for the elderly. And in the case of elderly people being in hospitals or medical houses, it's also very important to train the cooks and the nurses who are actually preparing the food and the meals for the elderly about the importance of these aspects, and to make sure that that elderly are truly enjoying their meals, because it's one of the things that still gives a spark of joy in the day. It's eating, so it's very important to still give them tasty food while enabling them to eat it properly. So I think there are a lot of innovations also onto the market. Some food have even been developed in our case, in our region in France. There's a bread that has been developed that is enriched in proteins while enabling chewing and swallowing, that is now even reimbursed by Social Security because it's such a good product for elderly. So yeah, there are a lot of innovations in the sector, and I think we need to continue also in all these personalized nutrition projects, like the Sense for Health project, which is a really great innovation for everyone.
So these are very good news, because at the end, the innovations should move from the different group of ages of people, from children to the elderly, just to obtain different approaches for a healthier nutrition, sustainable, and also tasteful. Because
absolutely,
all of this,
the trilogy.
yeah, I know, I can imagine. So I think, Lars, that we can try a good tasteful dessert for the next for the next part of the meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
In this particular restaurant, we had a plan to serve coffee now, but we only had cafe latte, and as you know, that you can never serve cafe latte after a lunch. That would be just wrong. So therefore, we'll move on to the dessert instead. And an interactive session. And thank you so much to all of our great speakers and for their patience and flexibility during this session. It shows what a great kitchen we've got, able to adjust to challenges as well. So Our interactive session, well, we'll be using the Mentimeter tool 2. You can see on screen the menti.com, the code 40, 43, 45, 40. If you open up a browser, another browser, and go to menti.com and use the code, we'll figure out both how together to use the Mentimeter tool, to use your great feedback via the questions there, and then see if we can use that to, well, get some good desserts on the table also. Joining me, I suppose, to present some of it, Frederic Bayer and Maria Sherbov as well. We'll also be presenting some of the results and in help you, me, us. There's the element of about an interactive session. This is not about, well, me. This is about us. We have now come to the part of the lunch where we'll be, well, discussing our food, I suppose, discussing our thoughts about food, discussing some of the tastes that we've had. And Frederic?
Hi, everyone.
Yes, we can hear you. And we are trying to figure out, maybe Maria just was too engaged with the lunch or the coffee. I'm still looking for the coffee, but we'll find Maria too quite soon, I'm sure. But menti.com, Frederic.
Okay, if everyone could connect. For now, we have only 8 participants, only 8 people connected. So everyone go on menti.com and use the code that's written above. So everyone can participate in the same time, in real time, and you'll see all your answers displayed on the screen. That should be fun. Okay, just a little something about me, actually, and then I'll stop. I'm Frederic Bayer. I'm actually currently a fellow from EFSA, from the EFSA program EU4I, to be trained in risk assessment and risk communication as well. And my background is I'm a nutritional engineer, and I've been working in a communication agency now for 8 years, mostly on agro-food topics. So both my background are in scientific studies and in communication as well. And we'll be glad together to actually go on and share your opinion, your guesses, your wishes, what you expect from the dish cluster as well on some more personal views. Okay. You can still connect anytime. Huh? We have a little something to offer you, actually. You can ask anything to the previous speakers. Of course, all your questions will be anonymous, so you can ask really anything that goes around your head. And it's important for the speakers to as well have some feedback on what they can explain more on the accent they should put on several aspects of their presentations as well. So here's the floor to you. Everyone connected to Menti can now ask your own questions.
What kind of gummy bear do I prefer if I have ADHD? No, sorry. Joking here, but feel free. Yes, as it says, any questions starting with the name of the speaker. Meaning also, of course, the project coordinators as well. Feedback from the speakers or the projects in general. It's clear that there's a lot of very good and very talented people working to promote food safety across Europe. So one of the fascinating elements, I suppose, would be also to discuss how we move forward, because there's we do not have a situation, and maybe that is, of course, impossible, whereby there's not any challenges. There are definitely challenges to both finding the right nutrition, to find the right information about the nutrition you want, to find the good and food and safe foods to eat, and so on. Very interesting talks. Do you wash eggs before introducing them to the fridge, Dr. Langford? Yes. How do you do to be so enthusiastic? Well, I'll try to answer that question later. And are you going to test your ADHD for real? Yeah. I think maybe one of the very, do you really hate coffee latte so much? No, but I know that there's a lot of Italians that would definitely kill me if I tried to suggest that I had one after lunch. No. Food labeling, there's a question there for Eugénie about how that might be effective to change consumer behavior. Maria, here, some nice questions. What is a microbiota and where it is? How about the honey? Can we use every day for properties like, or is it like sugar? Yeah. A lot of different areas, but Frederic or Maria, would you like me to
we can answer some of those.
Yeah.
As for the how can you avoid fake information about nutritional values, well, everything is regulatory written on the front or the backpack of your products, and this is the only way that you can have the real info. Everything that you will see on the internet, everything can be distorted, can be arranged, but the thing that you will see, the nutritional values that you'll see on the packaging, this is regulatory information. So this is the only information that doesn't lie. How about the honey? You can use it every day. It has some extra properties compared to white sugar, refined sugar, but essentially it is sugar. Of course, you can have some antibacterial activities as well. The technological properties of a honey are a bit different from sugar if you want to bake cakes with it. But nutritionally speaking, it is mostly like sugar. So you should be careful, like you are with the white sugar actually. What else can I answer?
Do we want to also extend the questions to the speakers from the previous presentations? Maybe someone wants to take up voluntarily one of the questions that are on the screen.
We can start from the top, I suppose, right? Maybe some of the first questions, not the questions for me, but about labeling being effective to change consumer behavior.
That's an excellent question. I believe that consumers are willing to take any help they can to eat better and to choose their food better. We have observed a lot of lack of trust of the consumers. They are really looking for more transparency and more information about the food they're buying. And the first thing a consumer and we ourselves also look when we go to the supermarket is the packaging. So I believe labeling is important. Nonetheless, it's important also to have something universal, not 1,000 different labels that we don't know how trustful they are and if we can really trust the label that's on the packaging. So I think it's important to have these labels, but it's also important to have regulations around these labels.
Indeed. And with this, of course, would be obvious if you, Stef, or you, Giulia, would have something to add to this, because speaking about regulations and actually also getting those regulations into the shops, that's really your fields, right?
Yes, I'll try to respond. So I think, first of all, in terms of labeling, I would like to kind of point out that we should see labeling more in the context of building enabling and sustainable food environment for a healthy and sustainable and safe food. So it's really just not to focus too much on the label, because I think there is a limit. So we should really look at the bigger picture and make sure that consumers are in a whole environment that allows them to have the healthier, more sustainable choice, also as the most affordable and easily accessible one. So yeah, in terms of legislation, we have coming up a work on at EU level for the Sustainable Food System Framework Law. So I think that it's going to really offer us opportunities to put all of these into concrete legal requirements, and to give a legislative framework for implementing most of the policies that we've been talking about before, and that I also mentioned myself. I hope it helps. Thank you.
Stef, a comment?
Yeah, I could add to that, sure. Interesting, because labeling probably is expected to be one of the actions also when we work on the sustainability of food systems, where it's expected actually that the Commission in the future may come up with regulation. Maybe good to remember that actually health and health advice is not so regulated at EU level. It's more the responsibility of member states and local level. So it's not so straightforward to come up with EU action. And so far, actually, it's been mostly about sharing best practices, basically like we do today, which is probably also an important tool. Coming up with labeling, probably legally is possible, but not so straightforward, because in fact, already current labeling schemes do exist, are widely used, they're not uniform. And also the impact on consumer change is not so well documented, it's not so straightforward. So adding additional labeling, also as Eugénie very nicely pointed out in her talk, is again not so straightforward, because what do you then choose as consumer finally? More sustainable or more healthy? So certainly something to be developed and researched. And I think like today, it's important to bring together the different research projects that add to our knowledge. But to regulate it, it's not so straightforward. Maybe if you allow me a word on sustainability there, in fact, we have an issue with metrics. There's many metrics around. There's already qualitative indicators available for some of the sustainability aspects, but there's so many. And again, it's not so easy to have a combined understanding. There, I think work is needed for the longer term, probably, to at EU level, but also to be implemented then by the member states, to come to comprehensive indicators that tell us as food systems where to go. And then obviously we need good quality data on these metrics, so that these will guide our risk mitigation measures in the future. Again, good just to say that important is that we work together from research angle, regulatory science, and risk managers.
Very good, Stef. Another good point, Frederic, maybe that we should
Yes.
have another question. I think there's a lot of questions that
there's a lot of super interesting questions. Speaking of indicators, there is a question about the how far are we from the definition of a real stable quantitative indicators for sustainability. For the person who asked this question, I suggest you to go look into the works of EcoScore, for example. Right now, it's difficult to actually design suitable indicators for everyone to be okay with, and it's not even regulatory yet. But we are getting this way. The same that we went from having nothing from the nutritional point of view to have the Nutri-Score now getting more and more accepted in European countries, with all the turmoil and the debates there are around this. There could be something similar for the sustainability as well. But of course, it's a very, very complicated question. There is one question to Hans that maybe want to answer later about if the gut microbiome plays a role in neurological disease. That's for sure it does, but the science is very complicated about this. But Hans could answer this later on as well. And there are a lot more questions about Nutri-Score, about personalized nutrition as well. Of course, about ADHD as well for Hans, how to introduce it in food policy texts. A lot of those questions will be, of course, will be answered after this presentation, because now we need to move on.
Okay, so maybe I'll then introduce the next part of this interactive session. So you've heard a lot about what our speakers have to say. And now we kind of want to know a little bit more about you and where you're connecting from, but also your attitudes towards some of the subjects that have been mentioned today. So first, we'll let you ease in a little bit. We want to know a little bit where you're connecting from. So if you could log into the Slido, the link that was shared with you, and probably this should just move on to the next question and just tell us what country are you from? Okay. We have Italy, we have France, we have Austria. Okay, so we're getting a diverse range of countries here, which is really nice to see. Romania. Okay, we see France is growing here. Okay. We have someone from Cyprus, but living in Germany.
Well, it seems I was right that cafe latte would be a poor choice to suggest. Cappuccino also perhaps would be tricky. Interestingly, Café Verkeerd from the Netherlands maybe could have been a choice I could have gotten away with, but a lot of high diversity here, and so good also to see, of course, the diversity, because this is really an issue that with the very, very integrated food system that we've got across Europe, we need all hands on deck and all kinds of people being engaged in this issue. It is, of course, a very nice thing that you think of food as something that's grown locally, and of course, eating seasonal food is one of the ways you can do that. But in our current and very processed food, or very high organized food system, that is maybe more of a romantic idea about food, because it's really, really an international food system. Where are you right now? At the office, and we see the house or castle. I'm amazed, but maybe that's the Italians with us too. There's a lot of castles in France, I know too, but surprising. My home is my castle though. But anyway, this is also, I suppose, an element about our modern working from home system. We have more people working from home than ever before. I really have no idea. That is okay too. Working from the twilight zone, that's quite okay. As long as you're with us somehow, it's okay. And maybe after this lunch, we'll figure out where you are. Which kind of job do you have? I'm looking really at the category other here, or the category none of the above would also be interesting. Academia, research, government institutions.
We have no one
consumer
from
organization.
communication yet.
Just a few more adding in here. I think maybe what we may see reflected our glitches that we had during might have skewed our numbers a little bit, but obviously this is very, very interesting for consumers and consumer organizations too. But in this is, of course, in the DISH cluster, a lot of good research that is going on, and we need to do more outreach too. So in a few minutes, our time is up, and it's been, how much do you know about our 5 projects? Yes, indeed. Let's hope for high numbers, but people know a lot about food, I suppose, in the sense that they eat food practically every day, most of us. Doesn't mean that they know about food projects or food safety projects for that matter. Well, I'm not sure here. Are you a winner if you get most points in this particular? What is, of course, almost everything. That would have been a fascinating response, I suppose, if you've had top scores for all 5. Ooh. How interested are you to learn more about to participate in this? Eat to be nice? Yes. More interested in knowing more about how you can eat to sort of help your brain. And how to use technology to get personalized nutrition as well. To know more about the platform. Personally, I would think actually a little bit, I know that parasites are not necessarily nice per se, but it's a very fascinating issue that I can recommend that you also dive into as well. But at least it shows that there's an interest in for us in the projects to work even more to both fill the need for information and to reach more people.
Okay, Lars, since we are close to the end of this event, I will skip to the last questions that are more interesting.
Very good. Yes. We can try to share all of the responses in a different format later on.
Yeah, I will send everyone a questionnaire. And so this is what maybe most interests all of us in this cluster is how do you think, or the audience, how do you think you can we can better support policymakers, because that's the aim of the DISH cluster, and we'd like to know your expectation concerning this role of supporting policymakers. Okay, so
yes,
you are now a policymaker, all the audience, and you are involved in designing, implementing national or EU food safety strategies. And I ask you many questions about how valuable would you think the things that are already being done in this cluster would be for you? How relevant, how valuable?
not really as if we have a clear winner here. So what it of course suggests that there's a high probability of a multi-level approach, and likely, to my good metaphor before about all hands on deck, and this means, or maybe all technologies on deck in this particular case, and all policies. And indeed, even though I think maybe especially Stef from EFSA is gone, most of you have heard the phrase of health in all policies. In this case, it's also about food in all policies, because it interrelates between not just the industry element, the educational sector, the research and more, but it connects with so many different elements, cultural elements as well. So therefore, probably we need to use multiple tools.
Yeah, this is actually very good news, because all of the propositions are things that are already being implemented or in the process of being implemented by any or all of the projects included in this dish cluster. So it's good. We're going the right way.
Indeed.
And of course, if there is something else that you would expect the dish cluster to offer to you as policymakers, that could be interesting.
Yeah.
Related, of course, to what you learned today, and what are the objectives and what are the goals of each project. Maybe you think of something that no one has thought about earlier.
Interaction with consumers. Yeah.
Definitely. Very important.
Nothing. This lunch was great. So I guess the nothing would mean that we are on the right track. I would allow ourselves to interpret it like that. More lobbying, more lunch, joint position paper, and translation of, and some praise. Oh, well, practical advice. Well, you're welcome. Awareness about fake news. Yes, indeed. And key messages for policymakers. More dish cluster, because everything was great. Well, we didn't plan for the technical crash, but next time we'll build in a technical crash just for the fun of it. Because of course, entertainment value also means a lot in a great lunch. Capacity building and sending scientific papers they published. For the overall Horizon booster, of course, a high emphasis on also disseminating not just the results themselves, but the scientific papers is of course very, very important, so that we get to use those as tools for more research, for more policies, and for more strategies. So I'm guessing Frederic and Maria.
Yeah, we have one last thing to ask the audience, is actually to go and register on this new app. It's about finding experts in all fields, from of course scientific fields, that's the main project, but as well communication, from education, from academia and research, from governments and food safety agencies. The point is on this food safety for EU platform that's growing. The point is to have a place where all experts can find each other's in order to be able to communicate more fluidly. So you go on this app. It's a brand new app. It's been released yesterday night. The point is to explain who you are, what are your expertise, and being able to be found by other experts that want to connect with you. This has been already tried in the past, but this is a more fluid way to actually all come together. So if you can play this game, this will be a really step forward for this food safety for EU platform and for the future of food safety in Europe, actually.
Thank you, Fareik. That's, of course, a good advice for all, whether you consider yourself to be an expert or not, or just in search of expertise. This is certainly a good finder app to match some of those issues within food safety. Here we come to the end of the interactive session, and we're close to the end of the lunch itself. I can sort of tell, I suppose, that there will be invites to future lunches forthcoming. Still without parasites, though, right, Pika?
Yes.
No parasites invited. But it will be a pleasure to host more lunches in the future, and maybe at one point actually with food on the table. I mean, real food, not just brain food. That would be nice too. So from my side, I can say thank you for allowing me to chair this session and to take you through this wonderful meal and menu. And of course, a warm thank you also to the organizers, the project coordinators. You have 4 of them here, Alejandro, Pika, Solvay, and Veronica. I guess this concludes our session, unless you have just a sentence or just a few words. I think we are over time from the 4 of you. Now is the time.
I think we just conclude. It was a wonderful lunch. Thank you, everybody, and looking forward to the next one.
Thank you, indeed.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you very much. We'll be trying to reach out with both information from our results, from the Mentimeter results from today, and trying to work together towards better food safety and better lunches in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.